Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Breakout players for this Auburn program going into 2025. A conversation that is infinitely more fun to have under Hugh Freeze than Brian Harsin. You take one look at this Auburn depth chart. I mean, there are it's one of the more talented rosters that you see in the SEC. More importantly, there is an incredible amount of potential up and down this roster. And I think that's credit to Hugh Freeze and what he's done, not only on the high school recruiting trail, but also in the transfer portal as well. You look at Auburn going into 2025, you kind of know who your dogs are, so to speak, right? Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton on the outside. Take a look at the defensive side of football. Guys like Keldrick Falk, some of the best defensive linemen that you see in the SEC. Who are the players that are going to have breakout years in 2025? A large conversation in terms of, hey, how does Auburn, do as a team in 2025? Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, to the Auburn fans, again, if y'all, especially with how good Auburn basketball is, if y'all are checking out some Auburn football stuff, February 16th, let it fly in the comment section. Know damn well that y'all got some names that you think break out in 2025. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, this is a list brought to you by yours truly here. The first one you want to talk about, a personal favorite of mine as well, Amaris Williams, going into year two, a guy that I probably thought would have played a bigger role as a true freshman for Auburn. Now going into year two, a guy that I think can be an all SEC caliber defender in 2025. What makes you put Amaris Williams first on the list here?
It probably starts with just like the look of what I think Auburn defenseman is going to start looking like under Hugh Freeze, where you see the twitchiness, you see the smoothness as an athlete. Again, probably needs to get better as a run defender. It feels like there were some times not playing physical enough in that realm. But man, you just look at just as a pure pass rusher from the traits he kind of has and some of the things he was able to do. I mean, played pretty good against Missouri, had some really good reps against Alabama A&M, and obviously Alabama A&M not the best school or football school in the country, but you can still see some of those traits you want to see as a pass rusher. I think he really has really long arms. I think he's a guy who, if he can fill out what he's doing as a run defender, I think he'd be a really good player for Auburn.
And you would expect that going into year two. And that's probably what prevented him from getting on the field more as a true freshman, because as a pure pass, having guys like McLeod and Keldrick Falk, it's hard to get on the field over those two, some of the better pass rushers that we saw in the conference. I hope we get to see him a little bit more at that buck and playing a little bit more in space, letting him utilize that elite first step. But you're talking about one of the better athletes that I've seen come out of high school in a really long time. And he's not necessarily the tallest, but has really long arms, an elite first step. You could see, I don't think it's crazy to say Amaris Williams went from, kind of a reserve true freshman to an all SEC defender in the 2025 year. I think he has the traits to make that happen. Going to number two, and a guy that you love a heck of a lot more than me, and I'll give you the T-box here, Bradyn Joiner. I'm going to be a redshirt sophomore. I don't even know if he starts, quite frankly. You kick Dylan Wade back in the guard. You get right back. He's going to have some wood to chop just to get on the football field for Auburn in 2025, but you're selling me as a breakout player in the 2025 year. Sell the people.
I don't know. You watch games like against Texas A&M and Alabama, like just a guy who's really physical. I think he does a really good job moving guys off the ball and was solid in pass pro. Like obviously not the tallest offensive lineman or the longest, but it doesn't seem to be a huge issue there and plays with really good leverage. And again, with a team that I think is going to want to be able to run the ball pretty effectively with the offensive line they're going to be bringing in, I think is a huge asset to them. And you are right. Like I look, where is his spot on this team? And I just think he's a guy that's going to be really hard to keep off. Like whether it's playing left guard, whether it's taking Miller's spot at the right, like I just think he's a guy that I'd want, or Jeremiah Wright, I should say, not tackle, but like obviously he's a guy. Look at you. I think you want him on the field because I do think he might be the most physically imposing offensive lineman.
Such a cool story for him. I remember him coming out of high school. It was 6'2". Dill, he weighs the same, or at least he's listed as at 330 right now officially with Auburn. Weighed 330 coming out. The body comp's completely different. Shed some bad weight, added some good weight. Probably more slept on prospect because he was 6'2", dude, he's a fire hydrant. And he's a really good athlete for the size, too. I mean, those feet, he is light on his feet for that size. Even if he doesn't start, like, it's really good. I mean, this is a starting caliber SEC offensive lineman. Whether you want to rotate because you know some of those guys have dealt with some injuries on the offensive line, keep guys fresh, probably 6-man off the bench on the inside of the offensive line. I can see it. I like Bradyn Joiner. It's just more like, where does he fit in the 5-man rotation for Auburn? That's
Again, like, I don't write him off in any sort of battle. I don't write
I
them off
agree.
sending Connor Wade to the right side and just playing that
That's a good
way
point.
as
That
right.
actually, I actually don't hate that. I don't like. I've been banging the table to get Dylan Wade to guard pretty much his whole career at Auburn, but fully recognize that maybe he's one of the best tackles. I think Chaplin's going to lock down the left side. I think you feel really good about that. Dylan Wade is just like this versatile chess piece you can put pretty much anywhere. He'll have success. That could be the best 5. Having a guy like Joiner allows you to get creative like that. And Dill, secondly, I mean, you talk about what Hugh Freeze is trying to build at Auburn. It's competitive depth and competition. Like, if you want to start over Bradyn Joiner, you better be a damn good football player because Bradyn Joiner is pretty damn good. You're seeing the depth of this Auburn roster get where it needs to be under Hugh Freeze. Bradyn Joiner is a really good example of that. Let's go to number 3 here, Dill. Another guy that I love. Now, I'll give some background on Malik Blocton. Another kid going into his second year. Was 6'3", 250 when he committed to Auburn. Comes into Auburn around 280 pounds. Was probably 280 pounds soaking wet playing as a true freshman. He was not a very big interior defensive lineman. Dale held his own in a big-time way. Ended up playing over 300 snaps, 6 run stops. Played really well. About as good as you'll see a true freshman play in the SEC on the inside of the defensive line. What does it look like when he fills out that frame and fills out that body? Because he's a really, really good athlete for that size. Malik Blocton maintaining that first step in athleticism, getting up to around 300 pounds, which I think eventually he'll get there. That fires me up going into year 2, and you're going to need him because you look at the inside of the defensive line. There's not that many question marks about Auburn from a roster standpoint. The depth on the defensive line, especially on the inside, is certainly one of them. Malik Blocton emerging as a dude would mitigate those question marks in a big way.
And to me, he was probably the most just like purely disruptive defender on the interior defensive line they had last year. And just like you said, his ability to beat blocks, like that just wasn't something I felt like Auburn had enough of on the inside. Now, obviously, they had Keldrick Hall. He, to me, was pretty clearly the best defensive lineman on that Auburn team. But I look at his ability to be disruptive from the inside and make TFLs, be a decent pass rusher. Yeah, you said it. Like, his only issue is sometimes against double teams, against teams that wanted to be physical with him. Yeah, he maybe had some issues there. But like that, yeah, he's a true freshman. Like, he wasn't a super big true freshman either. I think looking at a guy who just as he physically develops and maintains the ability to beat blocks, like he could be a really good player.
Malik Blocton was insanely productive coming out of high school. Didn't play all like the massive, but he was very, very productive. I'm excited to see what year 2 looks like. All right, Dale, I'm going to take the wheel for a second. Talk about my guy. And the Auburn fans who've been rocking with the boys probably know who it's going to be, Jeremiah Cobb. I think one of the question marks is, all right, you lose one of the best backs really in the country in Jarquez Hunter. Who's going to step up? You got Alston. You got the kid coming from UConn. To me, it's Jeremiah Cobb, and I think he provides the biggest chance to be explosive in the rushing attack because he's an 11-second 100-meter guy, really good short area quicks, can make people miss in the phone booth, and didn't get a ton of work his first 2 years because Jarquez Hunter was such a workhorse for Auburn. Going into year 3 with that running back 1 position up for grabs, Jeremiah Cobb's my guy. And then I think secondly, Dill, this is the first time under Hugh Freeze that you're probably going to be able to run the football pretty successfully because you go back to 2023, they didn't have the quarterback play, but they certainly didn't have the pass catchers. And then you go to 2024, they got better with the pass catchers, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Cam Coleman, but still didn't really have that downfield passing attack. Going into 2025, if Jackson Arnold can be the 5-star that we think he is, well, that side note, if Jackson Arnold's that, like Auburn can win the SEC. But secondly, with Eric Singleton, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Horatio Fields, this passing attack specifically vertically is going to be extremely dangerous. If you are a defensive coordinator going up against a team like Auburn, you probably have to respect that and leave your 2 safeties high. Auburn, the first 2 years under Hugh Freeze, have been getting heavy boxed pretty much the whole Hugh Freeze tenure. You're going to have a little bit more space. And you have an offensive line that is big and that can move people off the line of scrimmage. What running back can come in and maximize this rushing attack? To me, it's Jeremiah Cobb. I will give you the T-box. That was a long explanation on my guy Jeremiah Cobb breaking out.
And it's a position that they really need to hit on because Jarquez Hunter, you said it, like, was so important to that rushing attack, and they really didn't use anyone else that much. I mean, he really took the bulk of the carries. He was really, really good. He was probably the most dependable player on the whole team, it felt like.
Probably.
For the most part. Yeah, they need a running back 10 to step up and fill that void. And so you're looking for Jeremiah Cobb to certainly have a huge year.
That's who I think has the highest ceiling. And it's not a shot at Austin. And it's not even a shot at a guy like Elvin Henderson, who I think as a true freshman could come in and be productive as well for Auburn. So I've loved Jeremiah Cobb ever since he was coming out of high school. To me, this is the year it comes together. The Jeremiah Cobb prophecy comes together, if you will. The most important, again, we said it, Jackson Arnold. Like, I think you could throw him as a breakout candidate for Auburn. Now, I didn't want to put him in this episode because, look, we're going to talk a lot about Jackson Arnold over the next couple of weeks and months. But he's the biggest storyline. I will bang the table. If you get Jackson Arnold playing like, let's say, a top 5 SEC quarterback, even really just top half. And again, what's exciting about him is he has the ceiling to play like a top 5 SEC quarterback. Peyton Thorne, he knew wasn't going to give you that. If you get that level of play from Jackson Arnold with the roster that I look at on paper, this team's going to be extraordinarily dangerous. And that's what excites me the most. This is one of those teams that has probably the biggest ranges of outcome. Like, if they went 5-7, I'd be surprised, but not super surprised. And if they went 10-2, Dill, I would be like, yeah, well, they had the roster to do so. Can Hugh Freeze maximize it in 2025? We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. To the Auburn fans, it's been a blast talking this program, really ever since Hugh Freeze has taken over the wheel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.